if we go back to 2005, I had my first real burnout where I ended up in hospital and had a brain surgery for 5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when I was doing the same type of work, 60 hours a week, high level.
Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build $1 billion business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. You know, I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. Please share and enjoy. Hey, this episode is with a friend of mine. This is a round 2 episode, so you might have heard him before. His name is Anfernee Chansamooth. He's a master when it comes to basically customizing strategies for you. For him specifically, he's all about service-based businesses. He's very intuitive. He can kind of connect all of these dots. He's helpful when it comes to building trust, attracting leads, and generate sales, but your way. And in this episode, he's going to dive into a whole bunch of different models that you can swipe and deploy for yourself to kind of audit what you're doing currently. And maybe you had something you've been doing, it led you to burnout, it led you to whatever, kind of falling apart, not feeling great. Well, this is your chance to recalibrate things and use some AI tools as well. He gives a whole bunch of examples here on how you could swipe and deploy yourself. And go check out theauthenticmarketer.com/hustle or /Joe, either should work. And you'll see a bunch of resources he talks about and mentions in the episode. All right, let's get into it now. Anfernee, we're back. We're live. We're recording now. Round 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the future.
We're back. We both had some waves happen between the gap here, and all for the better, I would say. Let's talk about it.
Awesome to be here, Joe. Round 2. It's almost like we survived the pandemic.
I hope so, man. There's always a wave of something on the horizon, but yes, the pandemic definitely strengthened us. That's for sure, I'd say.
Yeah, and it did. To be honest, it didn't feel that way. There was a tough period. If we go back, even 12 months, where are we now? We're in March. Mm-hmm. This time last year, I was a mess.
Same. I felt my heart was pumping out of my chest half the days, and I was doing stuff I wasn't made to be doing. I didn't realize that at the time, though. Definitely it was an unconscious thing. So we're going to bring that stuff to more conscious. I know you got some stuff up your sleeve we've been chatting about. Where the idea is kind of know thyself a little bit. Like, I think all of us, we've been through a lot over the last handful of years, and, it shows up in different ways, but we know what the heck or who we are, and then how we can place ourselves in any kind of box throughout life. I think it gets a little bit more fun. It's almost like gamifying life. What should not do, and watch my energy level go up and down, stress level. But at least that's how I've been approaching it. I've been trying to kind of measure and really be attuned with what the heck I am doing. But let's talk about, I want to go back to I guess that last year. What happened? You said it took about 6 years to get to that point, and then burnout happened. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I, to give some context to people who don't know me and sort of my background, I essentially work in the world of marketing, similar to where you were placed, online business, this kind of thing. I ran my own content agency for a number of years. Started off as the marketing manager in a co-working space in Sydney. And I did that for a couple of years, full time, doing 60 hours a week. And I hit my first burnout since I left corporate.
Hey, I want to pause this and give a quick thanks to my friend Greg Marilees and his team at Studio One Design. They're the ones that built my website over at hustleandflowchart.com. I couldn't be happier. They nailed it. It looks so professional. They basically read my mind on the vision, and they executed it beautifully. I now have a perfect offer to display. It looks super clean. I've already been getting a lot of people asking all about it, and I've been referring everybody to Studio One. So they actually put together a quiz for you if you're looking to optimize your current website or build a new one. It has a full quiz that gives you a ton of results on how to improve and optimize what you're doing. So go complete that quiz at studioOneDesign.com/Joe. That is studio, the number one, design.com/Joe. chansamooth.com/Joe. It'll give you a free report after you finish that quiz. He's also giving away some cool bonuses. So go check it out at studio1design.com/Joe.
If we go back to 2005, I had my first real burnout where I ended up in hospital and had a brain surgery for 5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when I was doing the same type of work, 60 hours a week, high level, Fortune 500 company, high level stress, partying every weekend, just drowning everything, drowning sorrows in alcohol and other things. I vowed at that point in time that I would never allow myself to go back into that state. Fast forward, a few years later, almost a decade later, and here I am again. But this time I'm not in a large corporation. I don't have all the additional benefits of being in that kind of role, and I'm running my own business. And slowly but surely, I put myself in this position where I'm just drowning. And, it's different when you have 200 staff and or a team of 20 or whatever you have in that kind of environment where now you're running your own team and you've got maybe 5 staff. And, for me, I had a team of, at its peak, the business had a team of 8, including writers, editors. I had my wife on as my sort of partner in crime, CFO and COO kind of role. I know you've spoken about how, you and your wife have
co-preneurship, man. Yeah. A lot of people do it.
Yeah. And that, that caused challenges with the marriage and other things going on. And then at one point she actually resigned. Like she actually basically left a letter on my board. And I woke up one morning and a handwritten note saying, I'm resigning.
Wow. That's awesome. She said that, though. It sounds like, I bet that was like that's an awakening moment. Like, what?
Holy crap, Joe. Like, that was just the most emotional moment of my life, other than proposal. We should bring her on one day to have a chat about that. But anyway, that was just insane. But, she did it, and she basically said, I'm doing this to save our marriage. And then I went on to, the next couple of years, that happened almost 3 years ago. And then I kind of went solo from there and I dialed everything back. The pandemic hit. I lost a major client. So I actually had signed a contract. So December 2019, I signed a contract to work, essentially to become their CMO and work full-time in the business and be on a salary and have some benefits and all these kind of things, being the entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And then a month later, this thing happened around the world. You might have heard of it.
Yep.
Yeah. And they basically said, okay, we're not moving forward with this project and we're going to put you on a casual basis now. And so my income just plummeted like in one conversation. And I just decided at that point in time, I need to start scaling back my operation because our expenses are exceeding our income. I had to let go of my team. Everything just went like downhill from there. Yeah. And I just went through a dark period of evaluating what am I doing with my life. Like it's been 6.5 years since, I promised my wife when we met, when we got engaged, I said, this business will do well. 3 years, we'll be fine. I'll replace the salary because she met me when I was working at that role with the working company, and she saw me burning out there, and she said she actually encouraged me to resign. Yeah. Right? She said this isn't good for your health or our relationship.
Yeah. It's not a win here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I took that on, and I launched what was called Simple Creative Marketing. Yep. Launched that, within a week of me leaving that job.
You got that motivation back against the wall kind of thing.
Yeah, and we had a wedding coming up in 6 months. So I'm like, I need to make some money for the wedding.
Awesome. I was in a similar boat when I started too. I didn't have a business, but I just quit the job. All that. It was like months before getting married, right after I graduated university. It's all the reverse things that should happen.
Exactly.
But, so
and I got a part-time role as a marketing consultant during that stage. But anyway, during 2019, lost the role, lost the team, lost a couple of clients, and my income went downhill. And I just went, okay, like, do I try and hustle hard, or what's going on here? And my body started playing up. I started getting these niggling, my ankle started hurting, this knee injury, and I can't run anymore. I can't ride my bike around town. I'm like, what is going on? Like things start to break. And then it kind of all came to a head when I realized, and you mentioned that you had a chat with James Schramko recently. I was like having conversations with some of the members in his community, and just realizing that, hey, like I'm not thinking straight. Like there's something going on with my mind and my mentals, and I feel like I'm in a car driving into fog, and I just can't see where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that feeling of being lost. And it's interesting when you say know thyself, because I spent the last 20 years really trying to understand who am I, what are my capabilities, what are my skills, what do people know me for, why do people come to me for advice and these kind of things. And I thought I had it dialed in. Like, I thought, okay, I've got it. The market, the business is working. I've got good mentors like Shramko and you and other people around me. And then I started noticing, hold up, not only is my world falling apart, but other people's worlds are falling apart at the same time. Yeah. So it's not just an isolated case, but we weren't all talking about it. Like people were going through this phase, and it wasn't until really this year, in recent couple of months, even when you and Matt had the announcement, I was like, holy crap, like you guys are going through that too, but like I didn't know that, and I'm sure you didn't know what was going on with me, and other people in my circles, same thing were happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, basically I just got to a point where I decided, my wife and I, we were in lockdown in Sydney 2 years. And we're like, one of our values is adventure. Like as a couple, we love to travel. We love freedom and adventure. And, from the moment we got married, like we jumped, even a month after our wedding, we jumped on a plane and became digital nomads for 18 months and went around the world.
Yeah.
Right. And I ran a business from my laptop, and like that was taken away from our lives, and we struggled. Now, I think Cindy did better than I did during that period. But for me, I really felt it. I was like, I got to get out of this city. I don't want to make it sound like Sydney is a terrible place to be during a lockdown, because it's totally not. We were right by the water, by the bay. We had a daily walk. Yeah, like one practice that we developed in that period, my wife and I, was daily walking down by the river together, down by the bay. And we had that connection time between us as a couple. And that's so valuable. And we still maintain that now. We're doing evening walks and morning walks together. At the same time, I felt, and we both kind of felt this like itch to get out of there and go explore. So when the time came and we were out, well, we looked like we were out of the woods. We booked a one-way ticket to actually, we actually went to Portland, Oregon.
Oh,
and we went to the last World Domination Summit. Are you familiar with that event, Joe?
I think you messaged me, and I became familiar because of you, but I think it was the very last one, right? You said? Yeah.
So Chris Guillebeau, who wrote $100 Startup and some other books, he's like one person that I know that actually has traveled to all of the countries on planet Earth. Like he's done it. He did it in his early 20s, I think. And then he was blogging about it, and he became one of the old school travel bloggers / travel hackers.
Yep.
And he wrote about using points and all these other things. Anyway, he put on an event called World Domination Summit 10 years ago. It was the first event, and it became an annual thing. It started off similar to the way Burning Man started off, with just a small group of people in Portland, and then became this huge thing, and thousands of attendees, and 20 speakers and all these kind of things. And think of any of the, I guess, influences that we kind of know of in our space, more in the personal development and all the small business space, but they've probably spoken on a stage at World Domination Summit at some point.
Nice.
And so this. We were supposed to go. We bought the ticket back in 2018 for the final event, which was supposed to happen in 2019, and then the pandemic happened. So then they basically delayed it until they were able to put it on. And so last year, 2022, was the last event. Initially, we were not going to go. We had the ticket, but we were thinking, oh, we're not going to go. Our thoughts were cast towards going to Vietnam. That's where Cindy is from, my wife, and we enjoyed it last time we came here, and but I couldn't sell the ticket, so I tried to sell the ticket for like half the price, 1/3 the price, whatever.
Yeah.
No one would take the bloody ticket, our tickets, and so Cindy's like, well, we paid just some good money for that thing, so we're going.
Get the heck out of here. Let's hit it.
So we got our one-way flight to the States, and then we went to the event, and it was the best thing at that point in time, just to experience a resurging of this energy of people reconnecting in person, a community of adventurers and entrepreneurs coming together and just having fun and having I experienced my first ever men's circle where I stood in the park with a group of men facilitated by, I guess he's a male masculine energy or male energy coach or something. And it was a very vulnerable where everyone was just sharing like, this is the shit that I'm going through as a man. And it's such a powerful experience to have. If you're a guy, you're listening to this and you've never had it, I highly encourage you getting yourself into a men's circle. And make that a regular thing if you can, because we kind of, try and be these tough macho dudes, and we try to, fight the battles for our wives and our families. But who's there to support us in the challenges, those struggles, right? Like, who do we talk to? And most of us have buddies that we go to, but it's different. And when you have a space that's designed specifically to bring the shit out and specifically to like, go, this is who I am and who I think I am, and have mirrors to say, well, actually, you're more than that. And you're much more than what you see and what you're experiencing. And by the way, those struggles you're having with your wife or your kids, I'm having those too.
That's the big piece right there, man. And I'm actually in like a virtual one right now. There is a retreat that in a couple months we're to be actually in person down in Costa Rica, which is pretty cool. And I'll just give him a shout out. It's extremely conscious. And because I've had Trevor Turnbull on the podcast, one of the guys, and exactly same thing. And that's what we're all that's what we talk about, and even talk about with James Shramko and all. When you have that vulnerable moment, especially as men, and I know there's a lot of men listening, there also are women, but like I know us as men, we almost like try to just force it to happen ourselves and think we know the way, we're problem solvers, and like I don't need to talk to someone or get help necessarily. This might be internal chatter, but like when there's other people and there's mirrors and people that actually listen to you, all of a sudden you're just like everything gets a little easier. And usually the wives or the partners are the ones that want you to go take that leap anyway and give yourself permission,
And and that's the thing, like, it's not to disclude women from the conversation, because, it's we're learning, and we've never been taught that, first of all, as a man growing up in Australian society, and I assume in American society, like, it's not manly to cry, it's not manly to, behave in certain ways and to share your feelings and be vulnerable and these sort of things. And it's just having that space and just hearing that, hey man, like, you're actually doing a really fantastic job. Like, I think we can be our own toughest critics. Well, we are. And we see, something that I do a lot is I compare myself to the other guy, like, the other awesome man in my world, whether it's a Joe Fier or a Shramko or someone else, and going, why aren't I doing $20 million in revenue? And like all these, whatever these numbers are, why don't I have this awesome community of, 200 members at a conference, and then just go
comparison game. Yeah.
And why don't I have the house, the picket fences, and the cars and all these things? And then you realize, actually, and this is a question you got to ask, and this is what came up for me during my, the last year, is what's really important to you? Like what are your core values now? You might have done this exercise 10 years ago or 5 years ago when you started your business or your career or whatever, when you got together with your wife, right? But we evolve as human beings. And so, you want to just re-explore what does it mean to you and the behaviors that you're going through. So for me, I went through this exercise of understanding, first of all, how did I get to the stage where I'm burnt out, right? Where I can't think straight and I lost any emotion for the business, like for the work. For me, it's like, I'm kind of over this marketing thing. Like, as a marketer, I'm like, I'm just sick of all the bullshit that goes on and all this unethical stuff people are doing, and, tripwires and, all these other things that are going.
Urgency or scarcity. Yeah.
All of that, right? And that's the stuff that we learn along the way, and it works, right?
Sure.
People would not teach it if it didn't work, right? And they wouldn't make money from it if it didn't work.
That's for sure. Yeah.
But it just, something didn't sit right with me. And one of the reasons why I resonate with, people like you and James is because you tend to do things in a more authentic way, because you're like, well, actually, you can still grow a good business and do good things and be in alignment with, ethical values and treat people with respect, right? And not assume they're just like dollars in your wallet, and we saw and I'm sure you saw a ton of that when you went into the crypto space and the Web3 space. And it was kind of like,
yeah, that was all rampant, man. And I look back occasionally at those still, and there's luckily a lot of that has quieted down because of scams or whatever reasons last year in that space. But yeah, I think that's what was also triggering me. I was like, okay, we thought marketers or some marketers can be really shady or bad. And I love marketing and marketers, by the way. And I know you do too. But at the same time, yeah, you go to crypto and you're like, holy moly, there's a whole nother level, man. I don't like it.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad for you. It wasn't, you worked it out and you got out of there.
I escaped alive and stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like even just things like FTX going on and all these other like huge scale scams and whatnot. And so, I went through this process of re-identifying my core values. And, and as I think I shared with you my slow growth framework. Yeah, I was just starting to talk about the slow growth framework and why I kind of developed that. One thing that I went through with my burnout was just that reevaluation of how did I get into this situation where like I was spending the last 6 years like chasing growth. And it was all about grow, make more money, get more clients, just constantly leveling up, right? Like that's the verbiage that we always hear. Time to level up, right? Like, level up marketing, right? And it's like, wait a minute, is that the only way to grow a business? Like, is that, what's that all about? And I started to dig into and really, so I made a decision to pause all work for 4 months. So basically, it kicked off with us going to the US, doing that trip. We went to Vancouver, did a trip through the sort of California, and then spent a month in SF with my old housemate that I used to live with in Toronto. It was just reconnecting with people that know me well, and also just being in that space of let's just allow myself to breathe and explore, connect to the things that I like and love about life, like good people, good food, adventure, these kind of things, entrepreneurs doing cool things. And most of the entrepreneurs at World Domination Summit aren't marketers, right? Yeah. Like they're actually doing other things. And that was nice just to be talking to those kind of people. They're like, oh, we're out here, got a business building tiny homes. And we've got, I'm in my RV and I just drove across the US, for the last 5 years.
That sounds epic. That sounds awesome.
We packed all the kids. Like I literally sat next to this woman who has 5 kids, and she lives the van life of her kids. She goes all over the US and she does like wellness coaching and something like this. And it kind of inspired me and kind of gave us like just insight into what people are doing outside of, because you get in that bubble, and if you're always surrounded by the same type of people, you always see the same things, right? Right. And so for me, it was like, oh wow, yeah. And then my wife and I started thinking, oh, we've been thinking this for a number of years now. But we got more serious. We're like, yeah, we really need to get ourselves a tiny home in the next 5 years. That's the goal that we both would like, to be out in nature, like living out there. And we don't need a massive, mansion or anything like this. Like that's not our dream home. And sure, it sounds good, but is that really what we want? To be real, it's not what we want. We're actually going through a process of simplifying things and, even just packing everything up and getting rid of half of our staff and putting the rest of it into storage in Sydney and making our way from the States over to Da Nang in Vietnam, where I am now and have been since last August. You could view that as a downgrade in lifestyle, but really been an upgrade in lifestyle because we're one block on the beach. We've got a rooftop pool that I'll be swimming in every day.
I see you doing beach walks, sunset views at night. I mean, like that's pretty damn good.
The cost of living here is 4 times less what I was paying in Sydney. It was killing us and these kind of things. And we're just starting over. And then building from a good foundation of, well, this is what we care about as individuals, as a couple. And then I kind of applied the same principles to what I'm doing with my business and my career.
That story right there, I'm sure, the listeners, you listening, we've all experienced this. And, not only is the pandemic a factor, I know our age and like we go through different phases in our life, different priorities and things that matter to us. It could be kids, it could be a location or just a burnout incident. I mean, all of these are things that matter. And yeah, like there's a time to audit. And that's what James Schramko and I talked about, is doing that for your business, at least annually. But even for ourselves, like I don't think we take a moment, at least a lot of us don't, to slow down and maybe not even, do it for ourselves, maybe unload our brains and all. But I know what you have here, you're very systematic. And that's why I want to give a shout out to, the slow growth framework. Go to theauthenticmarketer.com/Joe because it's right there for you. So exactly what you were just talking about. And I guess we can run through either that, Anfernee, or the kind of more that human design and all the different tools, and maybe even leveraging AI to help outside things kind of help us understand ourselves now.
Yeah, so why don't we just quickly run through the framework and then we'll flip over how this relates to the next thing we're going to talk about. Essentially, there's 8 pieces to the framework, and it's developed from this state of, how do I make sure that I design my life and my career, my business, and my relationships in the way that it relates to my values and what I want in the world. Right. And it's like that audit that you're talking about,
Yep.
And you start off with identifying, step 1 is to identify your core values. And that's really, what are your guiding principles in your life? And I know you've spoken about this with other guests as well. When you get clear on your values, it just makes it a lot easier for you to make decisions, right? It's like if projects come your way, and we get opportunities all the time, and someone knocks you up on your door and says, "Hey, Joe, why don't you become part of my next fly to the moon crypto startup?" Right? And you go,
"No."
Exactly. So you can only respond to that because you know what your values are, and you say, "Well, no, that's not in alignment with who I want to be." So that's a hard no, right? So you go through that, you ask yourself some questions like, what's important to me? What do I believe in? How do I want to show up in the world, right? And the one that's been on my mind for the last few years is, what kind of legacy do I want to leave?
Yeah.
Right. Now I'm not in my 60s. I'm in my sort of mid 40s, and I'm already thinking about these things, right? I'm in that phase of my life, and I'm glad you brought up your age, because age does play a role here. And I don't like to say, "Oh, you're an old guy," whatever. It's more around, no, you're just at a stage of life where, you spent the last decade, you've been married, you've had kids, you've worked your career for over multiple decades now. You're probably thinking about legacy, right? So we move from core values to then defining your growth limits, right? And here's where it's a different approach to how most startups operate. Which is grow as fast as you can at any cost, right? And that's the message. And this comes from the startup VC world, and it's infiltrated its way into businesses like ours, where we're not in that VC, we're not chasing investor money. Yeah, we're in small business, and we're like, maybe solopreneur, maybe it's partnership, but for whatever reason, we kind of adopt that mentality of, they call it fail fast. What is it? Fail. Whatever.
Scale fast, fail. Something.
Fail often, right?
There you go.
And it's like, that kind of works when you've got millions of dollars of investor money behind you, and you can run those experiments. But when you are just not in that place, it's not that easy. And you have to remember, the VC mentality there's a good video on this where Chansamooth, who was he was one of the first 10 hires at Facebook. He's left now, but he talks about how the whole VC venture capital world is basically a huge Ponzi scheme, right? And it's designed to make money for the investors, and the humans that they work with, the startups they invest in, they kind of view them as opportunities to make money. Like, it's not
the workers, the pawns, or whatever you want label, to do the thing. Yeah. Because
the way that they operate is they make small bets on a range of startups. They might pick 20 startups, put $10,000 or $1 million in each startup, and then they know, even if 1 or 2 of those win and the other 8 fail, they've made their money back and they've made more money, right?
That's right.
But when you're running a small business, you're not placing that many bets, right? Because you probably have 1 product or service, and you got to get that right first before you launch another 5 products or services, And so just the psychology and the mentality and the approaches don't align, right? So I was stuck in that world of fast growth, grow your email list, grow your database, let's go, 10,000, 20,000, let's go, right? And it's like, at the end of the day, like, can you even name 10 of those people in your database, and would you have real conversations with them and have coffee dates and go out and take your kids and hang out together? Like, is that even a thing, right? So you got to define your growth limits. And when I say that, usually we define our upper limit. We usually define our lower limit. We say, okay, we want to make $10,000 a month, right? That's usually how we do it.
It's pretty common too, that number for almost everyone. Yeah.
Everyone, right? But where we burn out is because we haven't defined the upper limit, right? Where we haven't questioned, well, wait a minute, what's my actual capacity? Or what's the capacity of my team? Or what's the capacity of my business to actually deliver great results for our clients, our clientele, right? If you don't define that, then you don't know when you're stretched. Like, because you just kind of feel like, oh, all I need to do is hire quickly, bring someone else on, or I gotta, and that's like, if you look at some of the businesses like Smart Passive Income, Pat Flynn, or you look at some other sort of one person solo businesses that have done well over time, they've gotten very clear at what their upper limits are. And Pat's like you, Joe, where he's got a few kids. When he was starting his entrepreneur journey, he already had a few kids, and so he knew, well, I can't just be out there burning myself because I've got daddy time. Yeah. I've got to be there for my kids and
he respects
my wife.
his lifestyle, and it's in San Diego as well. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's a San Diego thing, man. Yeah. Right. And so when you can find the upper limit and you go, okay, I can only take on 5 clients a month. For me, like, as a consultant, that's my max, right? Even though I can theoretically push to 7 or 10 and I can double my revenue, it's not worth it because then I can't actually give quality performance or quality value to the existing clients, right? They're going to notice. Right. Man, like, your game's not right. There's nothing going on here, and then that's what happens.
I was just going to say really quick, like the reframe for me since my burnout, because I always was the more, because I did not define that. And, I'm great at delivering, but not when I have 20, 30 clients. That's why I'm very conscious now I have 3 clients currently consulting, but then there's further opportunity, either rev share or whatever. But That's always, that's really what I want to take on, is just a couple, maybe each quarter, maybe even less, but with that longer term vision, so they can kind of compound more than, stack and then diffuse energy everywhere. They're all going to work together. Yeah. And then you'll get better results with your clients. You'll get the word of mouth power because they're going to go out there and go like, Joe's amazing, and then you're at capacity, so then it's natural for you to go, well, actually, I need to raise my rates because, like, to get me, I'm not where I was 2 years ago or a year ago. So therefore, you're naturally going to increase your revenue anyway, right? Or if you're in Shramco as well, you're going to be talking about your EHR. Okay, define growth limits. Number 2. Number 3, focus on positive habits, right? We talked about one of those already, like just surrounding yourself with the right people. For me, it's like have more male conversations, like real men conversations, not just like how's the footy or how's NBA today. Like, let's talk about like what's going on for you, man. Like, what challenges have you got this month, or what's a block I can help you with? And I've actually got a couple of guys that I meet up on a regular basis every 2 weeks where that's the conversation. Accountability. It's a good open door, and it's someone that's going to be real with you. And that's you don't need a lot of people. You don't need something formal either, but it can help.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, for your marriage, for me and my wife, we have those real talk conversations, talking about the finances, talking about our relationship. We always check in. How are we doing? How would you rate this right now? Where did I fall flat? Right? Because that's important. That's the one thing I think entrepreneurs don't talk enough about, is the partner behind the scenes. Yep. Who's actually, like holding the ship down. Like, if Cindy doesn't cook meals for me and do the things that she does, man, I can't do what I do. Right.
I would have a screaming kid running into my room right now, and all these. We would not have a functional interview right now.
There you go. There you go. Number 4. Right. So we've gone from positive habits to simplify your life and work. Just like you're saying, focus not on more, but how do I simplify? How do I dial things down where I'm not just packing things? I can, you think about like a juggler. You can only juggle 3 balls, maybe, right? Instead of adding 2 more, right? What can you do? If you're going to bring on something new, what do you need to let go of, right? So, and being real conscious about that, I think it's just easy. And then for me, like simplifying life is more around, well, I want to be close to water. I need to do my morning walks down by the beach, as you mentioned. That's my time for myself. It's also time for me to connect with nature, and just to I love standing in front of the ocean and looking at the waves and realizing, man, like I'm part of something much bigger than just me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's getting out of our bubble and like out of our office, out of our house, and away from just our screens. It's go and connect and experience other flavors of the world and people.
Put your podcast on, listen to Hustle and Flowchart, do your thing. Like that's what it is, right? Number 5 is invest in relationships, right? And this is what I was talking about earlier. It's not about building an audience of 20,000, right? Or 10,000. It's about like knowing who are those individuals. Pat Flynn does this really cool thing where he schedules 15-minute calls with people that as they come through his welcome sequence, it's like, hey, by the way, would you like to jump on a 15-minute no sale, no pitch call with me just to get to know you?
Yeah, I've heard about that. I forgot about that, but it's such a it's what everyone should do ultimately. Like if you're starting even from scratch, it's probably the best time, but even further, you still have the time to do that.
And that's the thing, like we've heard those stories where the CEO of a large organization, they'll still get on a call with like, the new employee who's employee number 200, or they'll get with the new client that's just come on board and just have a good chat for 30 minutes. Just like, hey man, like what are you doing? What's up? And people get surprised when I remember working with a CEO like that who did that. And that people would always be like writing reviews going, oh my God, I can't believe the CEO or the whoever just called me because I thought they were just too busy. And it's like, you're never too busy to invest in relationships.
Right? That's right. Yep.
That's number 5. Number 6 is quality over quantity. And this is choosing, it's not about bigger and more. It's about less but more powerful, less and more real, and just, whether it's projects, whether it's people, we're at a stage in life where I don't need to have 200 friends. Like it just doesn't, I'm not going to see any of them. And let's be real, if I would go into my WhatsApp or my Signal, who am I really messaging?
It's like 5-10 people max, maybe.
Yeah. And so when I'm going back to Sydney, next week, and for me, it's just for a short trip, but I've already reached out to those 5 people that I want to meet, and that's it. I'm not gonna. In the past, I would have held a whole event and brought 50 people in and give 5 minutes, right? But now it's like, no, I want to spend an hour or 2 hours with each person, and just connect, like what you and I are doing. Like like that's where the value is: quality over quantity. That's number 6. Number 7 is do the unscalable. Okay, and this is what total counter the whole VC fast growth, scale as fast as you can mentality is actually focus on things that do not scale, like getting on calls with people and having chats, not trying to push them through a conversion funnel and all these things, right? And I've actually found, I don't know if you had, but once you talk to someone and you've spent even just 20 minutes with them and going, hey, what's going on with your what problem or challenge do you have here? Oh, by the way, I've got this really cool tool that might be really good for you. And you send the link over to them, and that's your affiliate commission there because you've solved the problem based on a real conversation and not because you push them through a funnel.
I've done that countless times, not on purpose, meaning like with that intention, but it's just to be resourceful to others. And that's what people want anyway. Like we all want that support.
100%. And the last one, and this is the one that probably I love the most, is be patient and enjoy the journey. Okay.
It's the hardest for a lot of people too.
We find it, and this is where I found myself. I just found it so hard to even take a holiday, like just to take a day off and do nothing and just be present. Right. And just sit at the beach or at your local cafe, whatever it is for you, and be okay with it not always be in work and thinking mode.
Productivity, like that's not the KPI here.
That's it. Right. So that's the framework. You can go check it out on the link that Joe shared. And then, so the first step we talked about was identifying core values. Now I'm going to take you through a process where we bring in cutting edge technology. We call it ChatGPT. But there are other tools like that you can use. And Microsoft is launching Bing Chat. Yeah, right now it's out there for some people. But let's. I've asked Joe before. Do you want to give some context, or let's go back to me even asking you about your human design. How did you feel about that?
It was out of the blue a little bit, but obviously you were booked on the show. We were already chatting, but I mean, I've done. It wasn't foreign to me, I guess, because you asked me for my birth date, the time I was born, and location, and it's astrological. I know there's a lot of astrology. What was the Vedic chart? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Needle. Yeah. So that I gave it to you. I was like, okay. I'm like, gonna hunt me down or something, but I don't know how you would with that information, but you would know a pretty good amount about me because I've done some similar things, but this was called human design, that one. But walk me through, and I guess the bigger vision of why you did that. Yeah.
So one of the things that I learned, if we go back almost 6 or 7 years ago, I spent a lot of time soul searching, going through different types of self-awareness systems, I'll call it. And just, we're kind of familiar with personality tests like Myers-Briggs or the DISC profiling system, which are common ones that employers and companies use to help people understand their own strengths and weaknesses. But there are some other systems out there that probably, aren't so common in the corporate world, certainly not in the corporate world, and a lot of entrepreneurs might not be aware of, right? And so going back to the Zodiac, I don't know, when you were a kid, when I was a kid, I would read this thing called a Zodiac in the local newspaper when we had them. Yeah. And we were, looking at, oh, I'm a Capricorn, and then it'll give me this like really vague
Very
thing
vague.
where, you're like, you're going to have an amazing week and the sun's going to be in Mars and whatever. I'm like, I don't know what that means. But for our anniversary last year, my wife and I actually went on a 3-day retreat. And during the retreat, it was a yoga, like we would do yoga twice a day, morning and night. And then in between, there were these workshops. And one of the workshop was facilitated by this gentleman who'd been studying astrology for like 50 years. And so he talked about this concept of a north node and a south node, right? And he basically, it was the first time I ever heard of this thing. And the way that he presented it was, so your south node is kind of like your habits and the traits and the things that you do naturally that keep you stuck. So these are the things that you have taught yourself that you're really great at. Like for me, I'm pretty good at project management, right? Or I'm pretty good, at networking or these kind of things, right? But is it in alignment with where you're meant to go? If you believe in destiny and fate, right? Is it in alignment with where you're headed? Now, some people might be listening to this and going, "Oh, this is crazy madness."
It's getting out there, yeah.
Yeah, and it is. I'll admit it's a bit woo-woo and whatever. At the same time, I found it to be quite helpful, just as a point of guidance and a reference. Like, okay, well, am I in alignment? And that's the key for anything is, success is not about the riches and the fame or those kind of things for me. It's actually being in alignment with who I am and who I want to be, and showing up in the world in a way that I work with my natural strengths and abilities. And then I surround myself with people who are doing that same thing with their own skills and abilities. And that's when you actually have a real high performing team. But if you have 5 people in a room who are not self-aware, no matter how hard you slog, right?
Disaster happens.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure you've been in those kind of environments, and I have, and other people listening to this have been. So that's just one system. Now, when I asked you for your birth date and time, date of birth, whatever, what I was looking to get was an astrological chart. And I was going to combine that information with your human design, which is another system that was created by, I'm not going to go through the whole backstory, but basically that system is a combination of 5 different belief systems. Like in India, you have the whole like the deities, and they've got a whole astrological system that they use to determine people's strengths and weaknesses and direction they should be going in. Combined with, there's a Chinese system. There's this whole, like, basically this human design is, this guy kind of worked out if a way to combine these systems together, create a test that you can go through. It's not really a test. You put in your date of birth, where you were born, and the time of birth, and then it works out, similar to an astrological chart, it works out what they call your human design. And then basically, it's really like a compass, right? I think of it as a compass that guides you towards the direction that you're meant to go in, right? Yeah. So you put in your details. It gave you this chart, and you said, I have no idea what this is. Because it's just like a picture of a human anatomy, and then it's got, your
lines
liver,
going everywhere and arrows and
lines everywhere, right? The whole point of it is to understand, the main thing you can take away from it is there are 5 categories or types of human designs, right? And so you've got your projector, right, is one type. Then you've got your manifestors, which is another type, right? And then you've got another one, which is your generating manifestors, or manifesting generators is the correct phrasing. And then you've got your generators, and then the last one are your reflectors. And I'm not going to explain all of them. I have actually an article on my site which explains all this stuff anyway.
Perfect.
But what we worked out for Joe was he's a projector profile, and so am I. So I'm also a projector. Now, projectors are, our role in the world is to be the guides, right? So have you ever noticed, Joe, that when you learn a topic and you're like kind of curious about it, that you will spend days and months and years digging into that topic, and it drives your partner and your business partner crazy, because they're like, why are you like so into this thing? And it's because we like to just learn and study as much as we can about a thing, right? And then we also like to experiment with that thing. It's not like we're just learning for the sake of learning, but we also like to experiment and run tests, right? So when, and this is how we kind of get into marketing, and we love it because we're like, oh, what's a lead magnet? Oh, what's a funnel? Oh, what's how to run ads, right?
Tests everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it's all testing, and for us, it's fun to do that thing, right? Mm-hmm. The benefit is for other people is like, well, they don't want to go through all that testing. They just want the expert who's done that stuff, right, to come in and consult them or do it for them, can condense it all, simplify it, and make it so that they can understand it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's what we do. Now, when we become unstuck, is when we get caught doing the non-projector thing, which is to do everything else, which is like, become the person who runs all the Facebook ad campaigns, becomes the person who writes all the copy, right? It's like, well, no, like that's
the detail work. I remember seeing that and reading. I was like, oh yeah, that is where I get stuck, and I feel like my energy just gets sapped out of every bit of me.
So our roles, and we usually naturally go into leadership positions because we can guide and train the next person who's meant to be in that role. Maybe they're a generator profile, and generators have basically, they're like a ongoing renewal battery. As they work, they get more energy and they just do more work, and they're just like, they can go all day. And I don't know if Matt fits that profile, but
I don't know.
You just don't have team members who fit that profile. Maybe your interns, right?
And so, for sure.
Yeah, and so it's like you'll notice. Okay, there are those type of people in the world. There are people who are, like the manifestors are the people who are like, they just have a vision, and for whatever reason their vision comes to life, and you're like, how did you do that? And they people gravitate to them, and people just
they're
like,
magnetic in a way.
I want to be part of your vision. I want to do, I'll work 50 hours a week for you, Elon Musk, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
They're working ridiculous, like 80 hours, 100 hours a week.
We believe this, man. Yeah, for sure.
Because we're going to Mars. That's the vision. We're going to Mars, right? So I worked out, we've got your Western zodiac signs. So Chinese zodiac, your disc profile, and your human design. Now, I want to give a shout out to my man, George Samuels, who basically took me through this process, and he offers consultations for anyone who wants to do this stuff with him. He's like the personal branding expert, man. Like, you want someone, maybe we can get him on the show too, Joe.
For sure.
But yeah, he's like at the cutting edge of community building, technology, and he basically helps companies build culture and systems using ancient wisdom. Like, that's his thing.
Wow, okay, so interesting. Yeah. So he's using AI and tools like this now that you're showing us.
I won't go into his whole background, but exactly right. That's what he does. So we basically just asked, okay, well, who would embody these kind of traits, right? So it's basically saying someone who embodies the traits of these things would have a unique and complex personality with various strengths and challenges. Okay, based on these systems, this person may possess the following. They're imaginative, they're empathetic, intuitive, creative, sensitive. I've seen that side of you. Spiritual, sometimes indecisive or escapist. Okay. All right. So you're practical, you're stable, you're loyal, definitely loyal, sometimes stubborn, sometimes materialistic, right? Nurturing, family oriented, emotional, sometimes moody. You're diplomatic, right? So, you're fair-minded, you're artistic, you're sometimes, okay, we talk about that. Charming, sociable. So some things are repeating because it's just talking through the different systems and painting a profile, right? Reliable. Okay, projector, perceptive, insightful. So this is why we make good coaches and consultants and guides, because we really take all the information and data that's given to us, and then we can then perceive from there. All right. Sometimes prone to burnout, right? Or feeling undervalued if not recognized for their contributions. Has that come up for you before?
It's very true, and that's a pretty common one, man, in different forms. So yeah, I mean, that's where I read this. I did my own. It's funny because when you just sent me this, I use ChatGPT all the time. I use like the playground version of it. And I immediately plugged all this stuff into it. And, not in the same format, but it gave me all these, like, what are your superpowers, all the things, what you should avoid. I was like, this is freaky accurate. And yeah, and this is even more detailed.
Yeah. And so what it's doing is we have all these systems. This is the problem or the challenge that George was solving was we're all doing these different personality tests, but there's no one thing that combines them all and gives us a profile, and it doesn't give us a personal brand strategy, right? Like how would you take that information and then build a career around that? Right.
And I think that's the big takeaway is like, the actionable pieces, you can use all this stuff and branding, but also you can take it into like what business model, what role in that business or someone else's business should you do? Should you even have your own business? Maybe you can ask all these questions.
You're right, exactly right. So now I've just asked, can you give a historical or fictional character that embodies some of these traits? And so some people there's some coaches out there that will say, look, think of someone in the world, living or past, or even just a fictional character that represents kind of the embodiment of who you want to be or your ideal self. And we're getting GPT to do this. And it's basically giving us, okay, based on your kind of profile, there are some people here that have existed, like Eleanor Roosevelt, Prince William, known as for his caring and family-oriented nature. When you did your DISC profile, you came out as the networker, and that's a high I, which is an influence profile. right? So same thing, and so this person is humanitarian, they have social causes. And that's similar to you when you talked about your dad and you talked about you wrote a book about, some of your experiences.
Did foster care, like help, but foster kids, humanitarian type.
Right?
Yeah.
All that stuff. And that's when you do those kind of things, the world sees really your value. They're like, this is what Joe is about. And this is the stuff, how he's going to change other people's lives and have an impact, right? They see, the things that you do, sort of your online business and all that kind of stuff, cool. When you combine those two things together, now we've got something really powerful, right?
And it lights us up too. Like I know when I'm in that mode, when I'm not in that mode, there's a disconnect and it's not always obvious, but when I'm in it, I'm like, oh man, all the dots are connecting. And this is basically cheat codes. Like it's true. There's so many things here. I'm like, Yeah.
Now, have you ever seen the Harry Potter series?
No. And I mean, I've seen bits and that's why I was like, man, Granger, sorry.
Yeah. And that's okay. Some might not resonate, but it's some of the traits here where it's intelligence, creativity, intuition. That's strong for that character. And so if you ever watch the series, you may resonate with that more than Harry Potter. You might go, okay, I see myself more in that character. Right.
Well, the beautiful thing is I know you can regenerate things in Chat GPT. Yeah. So if you don't totally understand it, generate it again.
Yep. One of my favorite series, I don't know if you've ever seen it, is called Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I have not.
It's an animated series. I recommend you watch that. It's on Netflix. You can watch it or whatever one of these things. Go through the whole thing with your kids. They're gonna love it. And it basically, it's like you learn a ton of stuff just by watching this cartoon, man. Like it's so good.
I'm in.
And it's very entertaining. There's a couple of characters in here that work really well for your profile. One is called Prince Zuko. He's head of the Fire Nation. There are 4 nations, and they basically battle it out over this series. And then there's his uncle. His uncle. The character that resonates most with you is Uncle Iroh, and he's the wise uncle that guides the young, passionate, fiery nephew who's always getting into trouble. And Iroh is the one that comes with his calm, and he just drinks his tea, and he's just like drops wisdom all the time. Like, hey man, like you should be doing this, or hey, you should be thinking about these things. And to be honest, that's one of my favorite characters in the series.
Awesome. Mentor, a guide kind of character it looks.
Yeah. You can use GPT to do that kind of stuff. Let's go down to one-page marketing plan. So if we were to build a business of Joe, right? What would that look like? Or a career around Joe? It doesn't have to be a business, right? But we're going to say, if we were to create just a one-page plan for Joe Fier, what would it look like? Okay, giving us some ideas of things that would work really well for your profile, right? And not giving us other things that won't work for your profile, right?
Wow.
So, and you're already doing a ton of these things. Okay, so brand, it's giving us. I didn't put your name in there, so therefore it's not displaying your name. Just say Joe is a creative and compassionate individual with a talent for connecting with others. If we gave it a background, it would tell us what your background was. Brings a unique perspective. Okay. What industry would you say you're kind of interested in?
I guess the industry would be, it'd be consulting, so content and marketing.
Do you still explore tools in that? Like, are you going to look at tech in that world?
Tech would be an element of it. Yeah. And conversion.
We've got to give it an kind of industry or an area to play with. And so we're going to go, okay, look, now you're talking about creative innovation as a marketing consultant with expertise in media and tech. You've got your background, leveraging your natural networking skills and ability to connect with others. You build strong relationships and lead to successful partnerships and campaigns. I wonder if you've already done that in your career, Joe.
Sounds familiar. I think I know that guy.
So Joe's target audiences, businesses in specific industries or niches. So you just got to identify what those are, who are seeking to improve marketing efforts and stay ahead of the curve, right, in increasing digital landscape. So, if you were to plug in industries or niches, then that would clarify that for you. Your unique value is basically standing up from the competition because of your blend of creativity and practicality. Right. And I see that already. Right. You bring those two things together and you have this ability to connect with industry influencers. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that you do remarkably well. So when you leverage that and your knowledge in media and tech, you can create strategies that help drive results. Right. And this is already, if you were just to copy and paste that into your LinkedIn profile, like that's what Joe's doing.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, you could totally use this for any kind of copy to sell myself, yourself, whoever, and swipe. And essentially, maybe study ourselves too to just make sure, hey, that's me locked in my mind.
Okay, now let's get practical. How do we use that? Okay, so here's some marketing strategies that would work for you. thought leadership, right? Okay, publish thought leadership pieces. Well, hey, we've got this podcast that you've got to hundreds of episodes now. That's an example of that, right? Maybe you do some stuff where you're writing for, blog posts or whatever it is for different publications, right? You're speaking at industry events. Well, that's what you and Matt were doing for a while, just getting in front of people at different, podcasts and different kind of things around town. Host webinars, online events, networking. You're already doing that. Content marketing, you do that really well. Partnerships. This is where you talk about rev share. That's a partnership. Yep. Right, you talk about, okay, let's find the best partnerships where we can leverage his other strengths and grow.
I like the second point on that one. It says offer referral programs to existing clients to generate new leads and build long-term. It's like exactly what a lot of it that I do. Yeah, this is great.
There you go, man. Like you're on it. Success metrics, okay, things that you and your clients would be looking for: website traffic, generating specific, whether it's revenue or sales targets, or number of commissions or number of affiliates, whatever. Maybe it's more clients in a specific time frame, right? These are kind of, and that's the thing where a lot of people have personal brand strategies. They don't get into what are the metrics of that strategy. They can get into, well, how do we measure success? And it's not about 10 million followers. That's not what the client's going to pay you for. Maybe they do. It kind of depends. For some people it is that. But we know, you and I, that for a lot of clients investing money, they're going to go, well, what's the ROI of that?
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
And then budget, where do you allocate your budget? Okay, you can look at your website, your social media advertising and other marketing expenses. And then you want to leverage low-cost marketing strategies like content and networking to expand your reach. So this is kind of like, quick one-page snapshot. You take this, you tweak it. The nice thing I like about when I went through this process is it just reconfirmed that I'm already doing these things. Because the other thing that people don't pay attention to is, how do I actually sell, and what's the best way for me to sell? Am I meant to sell from a stage? Am I meant to do one-on-one selling? Am I meant to put people through some ridiculous sales funnel and do that? This takes your traits and goes, okay, well, really for you, you need to network. Yep. That's the best way you're gonna say personalized communication. So the one-on-one touch gets you the best sales. Referrals, right, gets you the best sales. Right, follow up, and this is something that if you have a CRM in place or someone on your team who's following up on those sales opportunities and those leads, and that's where I've dropped the ball in the past. Where I'm like, I'm having the conversation, but I don't do the follow up, and therefore the money doesn't come in.
100%, man. That's where I'm nodding because I've done all of these and I know this is my natural set, but the follow-up has been the drop off if there's no systems or maybe people to help with the deliverables, even just showing up like that.
There you go. So
I have a question, like with this, do you have, because you write amazing blog posts and you have a newsletter, I think it goes out weekly. I just read it right before hopping on, but that's like a weekly thing. Can someone do you have prompts or like these prompts here, do you have them published somewhere that we can swipe and use or modify?
So that's coming up in an upcoming newsletter. You're giving me a sneak peek. Essentially, if you go head over to theauthenticmarketer.com/hustle, change it to Joe as well, but any of those links will work.
I think they both work already.
You can join my newsletter. You can read the framework. And you can also read my epic guide. I just published this week on podcast outreach, right? But yes, I will be sharing those prompts, and then also I will refer people to George, and hopefully we can get George on to have a chat with you as well, and he'll take you deeper because that guy is crazy.
Yeah, I love it, man. And when tech is combining with personal, like what can make us better people, and also show up in business and serve others better. I'm all for, man. And it's actionable. It's not woo-woo for woo-woo's sake. It's like, hey, we're actually going to learn about ourselves. We're going to feel better in the process, and we're going to do cool shit together. Like, it's a very perfect combo, man. So I feel like that's the enough. Like, that's how we can find our enough and feel fulfilled in everything we do. Well,
I was going to say, I appreciate you taking people through these conversations. They're very timely and they're very important. And it's like build business in your own way, or your career in your own way. One of the things that came from my session doing this was that I would fit nicely in a large organization where I don't have to do those things where I'm weak at, like data analytics and measuring all these numbers and these kind of things. Imagine like I just had someone on a team where I'm like, hey, you do that thing, man, and let me do my thing, right? That's where you could thrive really well, right?
I'm very similar. Yeah. And we're all different though. So yeah, this is where something I implore everyone listening to go and test this out. Try out some of these tests. I'll link a bunch of the resources in the show notes as well, of course, so you can click around and just go explore. You'll never know what you find there about yourself. Might be something interesting. So Anfernee, appreciate you, brother. And get on that train or bus, wherever you're headed now. I know you're jetting off somewhere, man. So appreciate your time again. And we'll do another round soon. Yeah,
we will do. Thanks so much, Joe. And enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks everyone for listening. Subscribe, and we'll see you all real soon.
All right. That's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others the way that people find this show and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, and I will see you next time.